Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette Kuntze. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette, and I'm your host. Today, my guest is McKinlay. Neil is an embodied meditation teacher, reflecting his interest in how this work enriches and is enriched by our everyday lives. He runs 2 online communities and hosts the Bringing Meditation to Life podcast. He lives and works in Victoria, British Columbia, with his wife and daughter. So welcome to my show.
Thanks, Swanette. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to understand how meditation can be helpful in this time. As we all know, we have been in this pandemic situation now for 2 years, and a lot of people tell me that they are really stressed out, that they are in fear, that they don't have the possibility anymore to really calm down. And I can imagine that meditation is a good tool that can help them to relax a bit and to really focus on how they can create their lives. So can you tell me how this can be helpful, meditating in our current time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, it's a fantastic place to begin. The past 2 years have been difficult, very difficult for many of us. And, of course, I'm no exception to that. The COVID situation has been challenging. There's personal situations that have been challenging. And I've felt it too. The level of stress in my life the last couple of years has been really through the roof. And meditation does bring something to this situation. Meditation does offer something to this situation. I think I'd maybe describe it as what it brings is twofold, a twofold offering. What happens when we meditate, particularly with embodied meditation, is we are bringing our attention, that attention that wanders everywhere all the time. We're bringing that attention deliberately, consciously, intentionally back to the immediacy of embodied experience. Whatever I'm experiencing right here, right now. So if I'm nervous being on an interview, I come back to that experience of being nervous. If I'm feeling relaxed, I'm coming back to relaxed, so on and so forth. And there's a couple of things that happen through that. One, when we come back to that immediacy, our level of stress and tension, what Buddhism, which is the roots of this work for me, what Buddhism calls suffering, but what we in the modern world will call stress and tension, our level of stress and tension reduces. It goes down. It doesn't mean that our lives are necessarily fixed. If we have a pile of dirty dishes in the sink before we meditate, we're going to have a pile of dirty dishes in the sink after we meditate. But what will happen is the stress and anxiety and tension, the suffering that results from us agitating about that all the time. Oh, I've got so many dishes in the sink. Why can't I deal with the dishes in a better, more orderly fashion? Why doesn't somebody else do the dishes? All of that we add to the situation is lessened by simply being present with this. So we settle down into what's actually going on in our lives. So that's one thing the practice brings, is that reduction in stress and tension, that reduction in what Buddhism calls suffering. The other thing that happens is when we settle into our immediate experience, when we settle into embodied experience, we begin to access innate human qualities that are built into us as human beings, that are there if we're having a good day, if we're having a bad day, if we have long hair, if we have short hair, if we're a good meditator or a not so good meditator. We begin to access qualities that are there and waiting for us, fundamental to our human beingness. Qualities like clarity, being able to see situations for what they are, sensitivity, the quality of being able to know another's experience as our own, and responsiveness, the ability to come into situations based on the clarity and the sensitivity that we've touched into. And to my sense, these are tremendous resources to have access to at times like this, when it's so easy to not see clearly, and I'll keep it personal. It's so easy for me to not see clearly, and it's so easy for me to cut myself off from others. And consequently, it's so easy for me to respond, to come into the world in a somewhat misaligned way. So this simple act of just coming back, this simple and challenging act of just coming back to the embodied immediacy of this, lessens the stress and tension and heightens our relationship with these basic qualities. And both of those, I think, have been huge resources for me in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so this is very powerful. And what I see is often people are with their mind either in the past, so what could I have done differently to change my present time? Or they are in the future creating scenarios that perhaps will never happen. And especially like these scenarios, they go into fear of something that is not real right now, but with creating this with the thoughts, they create their own reality in this direction. So especially being in the now, I think it's for most people already a difficult situation. What do you think about?
And I think, you use the word scenarios, which I love. And, being a human being, I spend so much of my life in scenarios about the past, scenarios about the future. And I think if you were to ask me what is the one biggest gift you've received from all these years of meditation practice, it would relate to that. It would be the ability to recognize that I'm in scenarios a lot and to occasionally do something different, meaning occasionally come back and be in this present moment where, as we talked about, we have this slightly reduced level of stress and this slightly heightened relationship to these qualities that are really helpful. So yes, I think that capacity to see and see through our scenarios and then occasionally do something different has been huge for me.
Yeah, so also like what you said, like what is the interpretation of the experience we have? As long as we are in a low frequent emotion, like being in anxiety, for example, we will react on a scenario totally different than when we are in gratitude or in love. So very true. Yeah, so getting this clarity, what is the status right now I'm in? Am I relaxed or am I in stress? I think this is also something that is totally important to make good decisions. Yeah, very true. And I remember, I remember when I first started meditating. Well, I started meditating, and then it was a few years before I really started formally practicing. But when I first started formally practicing, one of the teachers that I was working with would speak all the time about state of mind and state of being, meaning where we're at right now. And I had no idea what he was talking about. What are you talking about? I mean, this doesn't make sense to me. And that is, of course, one of the things that I've become more familiar with as I've practiced. One of the things we become more familiar with as we practice is, okay, how am I right now? I'm completely anxious or I'm completely open-hearted. To be able to recognize that is incredibly helpful as well. Yeah, so what I often hear is as well that, oh, I'm so stressed out, I can't sit down and now meditate. Like, even this would be the best thing to do. How can we handle something like this when we are in a stress mode and feel like, oh no, I can't even sit down? Honestly, I used to approach that question by trying to get people to meditate in the way that I thought they should for the length I thought they should. So for instance, I'd respond to that and I'd say, well, just meditate 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day and it'll be fine. It'll make a big difference. And my approach has really changed, and it's really become more person-centered. And, the truth is we all have busy lives, and the last couple of years for many, if not all of us, our stress level has been really high, as you note. And it does make it hard to do something like meditate.
And so what I try to do is really simplify it. And so just bring it back to something that we can do for maybe 5 minutes a day. Actually, something that we can do for 30 seconds standing in the grocery store. I still believe that there's a lot of value in, formal practice and blocks of 30 minutes and 40 minutes. But, recognizing that so many of us are under so much pressure, and the act of meditation seems like a bit of a reach in that context. I just try to really simplify it. So what is meditation? Meditation is taking our attention and very gently, but with a sense of precision, bringing it back to this embodied moment. So just feel your body. You're standing in the grocery line. You're really angry at the person in front of you and the person who's pushing too close behind you. You've got so many things to do. You want to get out of there. Just take 30 seconds and bring your attention to feeling the body. That's a good start. And I think we can all do that. I'm a householder. I have bills to pay. I have a family. I have a daughter, a wife, social commitments, and so on and so forth. So I feel these pressures too. And that kind of approach, really simplifying the practice and lowering the bar of what a practice might look like, has been hugely helpful to me. Actually being able to take those 30 seconds in, before we begin this interview, when I'm standing in the grocery line, as I'm waiting for the bus, whatever the case might be, is it's been revelatory. It really changes my relationship to practice and my answer to that question of, I'm so busy, how can I fit this in? I'm so stressed, how can I fit this in?
So yeah, this is great, because it doesn't mean that you really need the 40 minutes, take out your pillow, sit down, and so just giving you an idea of how I would do that. And not really having the time, being in a calm environment. So like no children running around you, no cats jumping over you. And so nobody is asking if the food is ready, but really having, okay, is a scenario as well. So it could be also really like find a short moment, 30 seconds, 1 minute, when you're already in a place where you have to wait, and eliminate the noise that is around you. Just focus on yourself and use this time. I think a lot of people are standing somewhere in a line waiting for the bus, or waiting for the cash to finish the client in front. So we all have these moments where we are waiting. At this time, I think most of them pick out their mobile phone and answer messages. But instead of that, standing there and focusing, I think this is a very good advice.
And the phone can be really helpful in this regard too. So if we make this commitment, okay, a couple times today, I'm going to take 30 seconds is what I seem to have fixated on. It can be 10 seconds. It can be 5 seconds. I'm going to take a few seconds several times today to simply connect. Okay, that's great. I've made the commitment. And then how am I going to remember that? Well, let's link it to the phone. And so 3 or 4 times today, when I grab that phone, I'm going to actually put it down for 15 seconds and just connect. So we can actually use that very familiar, very habitual action that most of us do countless times in the course of a day. We can use that very habitual act as a kind of provocation to practice in the way that we're talking about. Okay, there's my phone. I'm going to take 10 seconds. And maybe at the end of the 10 seconds, we're still going to look at the phone. Maybe we won't. But the fact is, we've interrupted that cycle a little bit and introduced a few moments of coming back to this present moment, a few moments to coming back to embodied experience. So we're using the stuff of our life. And I'm so like you, I need to have my cushion out. It needs to be the proper time. I need to make sure no one's going to disturb me. And I think those kind of blocks of practice time are really important. They're foundational for me. And at the same time, let's use the stuff of our lives to help us go deeper with this work. So, you pick up the phone 1,500 times a day. Well, use 5 of those times to remind you to just put it down and come back, put it down and come back, along with the grocery store and the bus line and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So you said you have not always been in this stage of being calm and relaxed and knowing about meditation. So how was your story to that you are now at that point where you are? Can you give us a little bit of insights about that? What was your journey?
Well, I've been meditating the whole of my adult life, and it started when I was a teenager. I was a competitive swimmer when I was a teenager, and we went away to a swim meet in a nearby city in Vancouver. And I think it was probably a cost-saving thing. When we were staying in Vancouver, we rented 2 big conference rooms in a hotel near the swimming pool, and the girls stayed in one, slept in one conference room, and the boys slept in the other. With the girls, there was a mom. One of the moms stayed with the girls and kind of oversaw the situation. With the boys, we got the relatively new, kind of hippie-like, weird, but very charismatic assistant coach, swim coach, looking after us. And we stayed there Friday night and Saturday night. And on Saturday night, he kept us up relatively late and taught us how to meditate. So, here's a bunch of teenagers climbing the walls, and he gets us to sit on our rolled up sleeping bags and meditate for a little bit. And I thought it was fascinating. It was the experience was just compelling to me in some way. And so I stayed with it. And for a long time, it basically meant that from time to time, I'd sit down and close my eyes and believe I was meditating. In retrospect, I wasn't, because I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought I was meditating. And then about years ago, I started working in a meditation community known as the Shambhala community, the Shambhala tradition, which is based on the teachings of a Tibetan teacher known as Chogyam Trungpa. Name is Chogyam Trungpa. So 30 years ago, I started to work in this community, and formal practice, formal training, formal home practice began to come into my life. And then 20 years ago, I started working in a community known as Dharma Ocean. And this was kind of a splinter group from the bigger Shambhala community. I started working in the Dharma Ocean community, and that's where my meditative attention started to turn specifically toward the body. That's when I started practicing the form of embodied meditation that I still practice and teach today. And curiously, throughout all of that, one of the things that has remained constant, and we're already touching on it here, is an interest in how meditation and our everyday lives interpenetrate with one another. And sometimes I wonder whether it's because I learned how to meditate in the world context as a swimmer from a swim coach at a swim meet. Sometimes I think an early retreat that I did with a Buddhist nun by the name of Pema Chodron, that was in the early, maybe mid 1990s, and was an online retreat before there was any sort of online. It was called a City retreat, CITY retreat. And she did a couple of them that were very influential. But, throughout all of that, I've remained interested in how this work illuminates and is illuminated by our everyday life. And, this is the work that I still do today.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Being in a temple or a monastery, it is more easy because you are not influenced by the outside, sitting there meditating or doing contemplation or something like that. But if you are really in the everyday life, and we already touched this a little bit, it is different to really focus on the meditation. So what do you think is necessary to have a good quality to have this embodied meditation?
I think, in order to have a good, what I usually talk about is in order to engage these teachings and these practices as fully as we possibly can, I think it's a balance of what we've already talked about. What we need, in my experience as householders, is a balance of that formal I'm going to sit down and meditate for 30 minutes or 40 minutes on a regular basis, engagement with the practice. And at the same time, a willingness to take it out into our lives and just begin to see how we can deepen our practice, our relationship to practice out there, with the cell phone practice, which you talked about, with the grocery line practice that we talked about, with the standing in the bus line practice that we talked about, and also looking at our lives and see how the teachings of meditation, which deepen our relationship with this work, are reflected in, work meetings or relationships or, soccer games we attend or whatever it might be. So, basically having those two streams running, flowing, and alive in our lives is, I think, a part of the puzzle of how we do this as household practitioners, as people who are living in the world with all the responsibilities and demands that brings.
What have you seen for yourself, but also perhaps for your clients, that has changed in their life while using this kind of meditation? So what was the transformation they were in, or you also made using this?
I think there's two things that really jump out, and curiosity and confidence. Meaning, curiosity. One of the things I notice is people become more curious about what their lives are, about how their lives are, about how they are in all situations that they encounter in their lives. The Tibetan word for, one of the Tibetan words for meditation is Gom, G-O-M. And I often tell people, I think this is maybe the best, most impactful teaching on meditation that I've ever received. Gom means to become familiar with. So the Tibetan word for meditation doesn't mean getting it right or achieving a certain state or even being a good meditator. It means becoming familiar with. And one of the things I notice in myself and in the people that I work with is a certain curiosity that develops as a result of becoming familiar with. Like, here I am reacting like in this way again. Okay, how am I responding in this situation? What's going on here? That open-ended curiosity. The other thing that I notice is confidence. People very slowly, very gradually become more confident that, okay, this is how it is for me. Just that, I'm nervous right now. I'm shaky right now. I'm open-hearted right now. And a willingness and a capacity, I guess, to simply let that be. Confidence in letting that be. So curiosity and confidence are two of the big things that I notice.
Yeah, I think you use the word curiosity. It is also like being more aware of the situation you are in, like understanding, okay, and also like life is not happening to me, but if I'm aware of myself, I can influence my life. Right? And like going out of this, I'm the prisoner of life, into self-leadership, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for that, you definitely need awareness and you need confidence to,
yes.
to create the life you want to live in. So I think this is also a very powerful tool for all the people that at this time are struggling and feel that life is happening to them. They are not able to behave as they normally do under the circumstances, but to be aware, what is my situation now? What can I do right now to even do a little bit of a change to create the life I want to have? Yeah.
And I often call that simply doing something different. And you're really right on the money, that the awareness, what I was calling curiosity, that awareness opens up that opportunity for us, an opportunity for us to do something different. And in my experience, usually those something differents are really small steps toward the kind of life we feel authentically drawn to. Like last night, for instance, late in the evening, I felt an impulse to have something to eat, right? No big deal. Impulse to have something to eat. And as I was going towards the cupboard to get myself something to eat, there was something kind of uncomfortable in my body. And I realized, okay, I'm actually just trying to get away from a difficult feeling that had come up. And having seen that and having recognized that, I had this opportunity to do something different. And I was like, okay. And in all honesty, here's the disclaimer. This is not how it works all the time, but in this instance, it's how it worked. I saw the situation. I was aware of the situation. I was curious about, okay, what's going on for me here? And I just closed the cupboard door and put down the spoon and went back to the couch and sat there for 30 seconds and just connected with what was actually happening for me. A little bit of anxiety, a little bit of tension, a little bit of fear, as opposed to going this other direction. And that kind of seems like a small step, but I think it's the small steps that really take us on the journey that we're here to live. So, yeah.
Yeah. This is amazing, because I think this happens to a lot of people, that they have whatever kind of emotion, and instead of really feeling them, becoming aware of the feeling that is just triggering, like how can I say this in English? Sorry, I'm sometimes struggling with words. So to bring up this feeling of I need to eat something. And this is not really feeling hungry, but it is like changing the emotion we are right into another feeling, like, okay, perhaps I'm feeling now better having my chocolate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, what a gift to be able to see that and recognize that. And I mean, let me go back. What a gift to be able to see and recognize that, period. Just that is huge. Because as I said, when I first started meditating, I had no idea. I wasn't seeing those sorts of things. So what a gift to be able to see that and recognize that and be curious about that, period. And what a gift to occasionally be able to do something different and sit on the couch and just connect with the feeling that's underneath that, the human experience that's underneath that.
Yeah. So can you give me a little bit of an example how people could start doing that? Because just sitting there and now how can I feel my body is even for some people already difficult, because they are perhaps disconnected to their body and not really like in the oneness. Can you give me a little bit of how they can start? What would you do, like introducing your method you're using?
Do you mean how would you do that in terms of a formal practice? What would a meditation practice look like?
Yeah.
It's actually really simple, and we could do it here in a matter of seconds. And, wherever we are, wherever we're listening or wherever we're watching, our attention is somewhere. Probably right now it's on my voice or on the screen in front of us that we're looking at. And the practice of meditation is simply an act of taking that attention and bringing it back to embodied experience. And let's just make it simple. Let's just bring it back to whatever we're feeling in the shoulders and the neck and the chest and the upper torso. Just feel that. And then, of course, what will happen is our mind will wander. We'll go back to the screen, or we'll start wondering, am I doing it right? And then we bring our attention back again. Shoulders, neck, upper chest. Just that. And bring our attention back. Shoulders, neck, upper chest. Oh. Shoulders, neck, upper chest. And just let yourself begin to slowly settle into whatever's going on for you. And again, not looking for any particular state, just whatever is going on. Shoulders, neck, upper chest. Shoulders, neck, upper chest. and that's it. And, you know, chances are we did that here for a minute or two. You know, giving ourselves a minute or two, you can certainly go longer, you know, as we've talked about, 30 minutes, 45 minutes is fantastic, but beginning with a minute or two, you know, on some sort of regular basis in our life, you know, it's just like any habit, a regular exposure is helpful. Some sort of regular engagement with this 3, 4, 5 times a week, come back like this for a couple of minutes. It begins to get a toehold in our life, both the practice and the kind of words we've been using, and the curiosity and the awareness and the confidence. They begin to get a toehold from us in our life, and they, you know, grow from there. And, you know, sometimes I will be a little bit skeptical of whether, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 minutes of meditation will actually have an impact. I mean, you know, I'm awake for 16 hours. How can 2 minutes have an impact? And, you know, the way I was trained in this work was more oriented towards the formal practice, the 30, the 40, the 50, the 60-minute blocks of practice. And so this is something I've had to learn. And really, I've learned through the generosity of the people I work with. There's a woman who I worked with years ago, and her meditation practice consists of 5 minutes a day at 12 noon at her desk, Monday through Friday. So she goes to work, noon hits, everyone leaves the office. She hangs out for 5 minutes, meditates at her desk, and then goes and has lunch. And as I suggested, this is very different from my training. And so, you know, I asked her, after a couple of years, I knew she was doing this. I asked her, I said, you know, like, okay, tell me, is this having an impact? Does this actually affect your life? And she was like, hugely, hugely. I feel like it reorients my entire day. She said, that's one of the things I like about having it in the middle of the day. It kind of reorients everything. And she said, then, you know, I feel more present. I feel more clear. I feel more appropriately engaged. And she said, then the weekend comes and I have my family and I'm busy at that. And when I go to bed on Sunday, I'm actually always looking forward to going back to work because I know I'm going to get my practice back. And, you know, that, as I said, that was a generous offering from one of the people that I've worked with over the years. And there's been many who have reported something similar that, yeah, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, they can have an impact if we let them have an impact. And so just what we did, that very simple, very brief practice begins to get that toehold for all the qualities and all the, I guess you could say, benefits that we've been discussing in the last few minutes here.
Yeah. So do you think it is important that, especially for beginners, they have a guided meditation, like to start their meditating training, or is it okay just to start however you can do that, like focusing on your body and bring in the awareness inside of you? So what is your suggestion?
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad that's come up. And, you know, a few minutes ago, we were kind of talking about how both of us have this, you know, this template for what a meditation practice looks like. Like it has to be 30 minutes. It has to be 40 minutes. I need my cushion. I need to have the doors shut. No one can bother me and all that kind of stuff. And I think that points, you know, that experience that both of us have points to something that's really, really important in terms of what we're talking about here, about how to bring this work more fully into our lives. Is it's really easy to find a whole bunch of reasons to not meditate. Right? No, I don't have my cushion. I only have 25 minutes. It's not 40 minutes. You know, it's too noisy, whatever it might be. All of us have, I often say the easiest thing in the world is to not meditate. And so one of the things I try to do is really take out all the reasons to not meditate that people might have, that we might bring to this. So honestly, if people feel excited about meditating with a guided meditation, if that's inspiring to you, do it. And if people feel inspired about meditating without a guided meditation, excuse me, maybe someone's heard this short practice that we just did and they say, that's simple. I can do that. I want to do that. Go for it. And, over time, I'd say alternate between the two. It's helpful to have guidance and it's helpful to do it yourself. But to begin with, go with the inspiration. Whatever is going to get you to do the practice is great with me, because it's so hard to actually get to doing the practice.
Yeah, so for me, I do both. So sometimes I like really to have a guided meditation, but also when I go to the ocean and just sit and see the waves going back and forth, it is very easy, because already this brings me into another mood and helps me, and then focusing on myself and bringing the awareness to me. So I think both is very helpful.
Yeah.
Especially, as you said, there is no need that you really need to create these circumstances, that it must be a perfect environment. And yeah, you can use a place where you are just when you feel that it is perhaps necessary, because you feel stressed out, and then, okay, perhaps you sit at your desk and just, you have a little break between two meetings. This is enough time to come back to yourself and to do a quick meditation as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful example, because one of the things that example brings into this mix is our impact on others. So if we actually take 2 minutes to meditate between meetings. So suppose the first meeting has not gone well, and we're very grumpy and very upset. Imagine going into the meeting very grumpy, very upset, but kind of disconnected from that. How are you going to be in that meeting space? As opposed to, okay, the first meeting's not gone well, you're grumpy, you're upset. You take 2 minutes to come back to yourself, to connect with how upset you are, maybe a little bit brokenhearted by the experience. And then you go into the meeting grounded in that experience. How are you going to be, and what's your impact on others going to be? In my experience, those are two very different scenarios. And it brings up, I think, this really important fact that when we're meditating and when we're doing this work and connecting with these qualities and these that we've been talking about, we're not just doing it for ourselves. It has an impact on others around us, which gets right back to the beginning of this interview, Swanette, and the situation we find ourselves in. We need to be there for others right now, because everyone's having such a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely. And also to understand that even though the other one is perhaps not using meditation to calm himself down, as soon as we are in a different state and acting from calmness, from love and understanding, the other person will react differently. Yeah. So it's like a kind of, I would say, like a mobile. Yeah. So if you pull here, the other one will go up, and vice versa. So we are always connected with the other people. And of course, as we are empath, we can feel the emotions of other people. And this means that they can also feel ours. And this is, when we are in a high vibrating state, and this is definitely something that will happen when you meditate, then you will give this kind of feeling to the next one, and this one to the next one. So this has like this snowball effect, that this will impact a lot of people that are around you.
Yeah. And I think that image that you offered of the mobile, I've never heard that before. I mean, that's a brilliant description of what it's like, that what goes on here very much affects what goes on here. This beautiful, hanging, delicate field of existence is very much like that. And so if we're spinning around, really quickly, that's going to affect all the other pieces of that mobile. And so, I think that's a brilliant image and a brilliant way of understanding or articulating our interconnected and the fact that we do affect one another.
Yeah. So what do you hear are normally topics people come to you with to start meditating? So at the beginning we had a little bit like it could be a stressful job or something, but what are really people that come to you, and what are the topics they bring with them?
Number one is stress. Definitely stress is the number one issue that people point to. The other thing that people do bring up with some frequency is a mind that's out of control. You know, the gerbil wheel mind or the monkey mind, people will talk about. And, you know, they're looking for, and of course, these two things are intimately linked, but, you know, they're looking for something that might offer some relief from that ever whirling, ever turning hamster wheel that their mind is on. And curiously, it doesn't happen as much as the other two, but, you know, often people will show up just with a deep, profound sense that there's the possibility of something more in life, and they're somehow missing it. They're not connecting with that. And they've heard that meditation might be able to help in that regard.
Can you,
but go ahead.
Can you go a little bit deeper into the second topic you just told? So how is this for people that they have a feeling there must be something, they can't grab it yet, but they somehow have this intuition that there is something that is important? Can you go a little bit deeper into describing how this is for the clients?
Well, we've talked at the beginning about these fundamental human qualities, these qualities that are built into us as human beings. And one of the ways that we could talk about one of those qualities is a kind of knowing, a pre-verbal, a pre-conceptual kind of knowing. You might call it intuition. In everyday conversation, if we were sitting around a coffee shop, we might talk about the feeling in our gut or the knowing in our bones. You know, that's something that we're born with. And I do believe that part of that, the intelligence of that knowing, is that we are born to, and we have the capacity to live in alignment with this present moment. And that knowing lets us know, it tells us when we're off. And that's the longing that people come with. They're actually connecting with what they think they're not connecting with in showing up and saying, I feel disconnected. That act of saying I'm disconnected is actually an expression of connection. And so, you know, what we do with the practice is to simply come back to the body, come back to embodied experience, come back to the shoulders, the neck, the chest, and actually, I was going to say feel that, but let's put it in different terms. Actually develop a relationship with that sense of out of alignment, that sense of missing something, that sense of disconnection. Actually trust that and let a relationship be formed. Let a kind of bond of friendliness and curiosity and appreciation be formed so that we can actually begin to let those kind of feelings, that kind of knowing, lead us in our lives. But the first act is, you know, to actually just develop that relationship, that first sense of the basic sense of connectedness with that, because it's very intelligent and it's often right on the money. And it's actually saying, you know, actually you're not disconnected. You're really plugged in. Let's just follow this line of breadcrumbs and see where it leads.
Yeah, I think that especially in this time, people really need to be led from their inner knowing or intuition, or however you want to call that, because we don't have a blueprint for this kind of situation. Most of us are born in freedom, and now we see the life is changing, and we don't know how to act. But having like the connection to ourselves, being good connected to our intuition, this can help us to make good decisions and to see how we can lead our life to something that is very amazing and perhaps helps us and our community we are living in to create a better world, better than this one that we have been before, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think, I'm just going to speak for myself. So I'm speaking for absolutely no one else here. But my experience of the last couple of years and the difficulty of the last couple of years is it's only been by, excuse me, it's only been by being willing to come back to the immediacy of this embodied present over and over and over again. It's only by becoming familiar with the uncertainty of this moment. I mean, what am I going to do? What happens next? I don't know. It's only by coming back to the uncertainty of this present moment and developing a bit of curiosity, appreciation, friendliness with this, that I've actually been able to find my way forward. That's the only way I personally have been able to do it in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Zen Buddhism will talk about don't know mind, and they'll talk about, don't know mind is the way you find your way forward in life. It's been one of those phrases. I think the phrase is beautiful. It's got this poetic elegance to it, don't know mind. But honestly, I've been wondering for decades, what the heck are they talking about? And this is what they're talking about, is developing our capacity to be present in the uncertainty of our lives. And goodness, right now, it's so uncertain. Be present in the uncertainty of our lives. And in that not knowing, that don't knowing, we actually find our way forward in a way that is really quite beautiful and powerful and affecting.
Yeah, wow, this is so powerful. So if people now are curious, and I'm sure they are, how can they reach out to you?
Well, you can find me in all the usual places. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Insight Timer. My podcast, Bringing Meditation to Life, is on Apple and Spotify and all the usual outlets. The main way, though, to check me out is my website, which is neilmckinlay.com. And a couple of things about that. I am a McKinlay, not a McKinlay, so it's MCK. And then my name ends with an LAY. Most McKinleys are LEYs, but I'm an LAY. So MCKINLAY. And the website is basically a holding space for everything I'm doing these days. You'll find writings, you'll find the podcast hosted there. You'll find free guided meditations that you can that are a little bit longer than what we've done here, a little bit more involved than what we've done here, that you can experiment with. There are a couple of communities that I host, a free community called the Living Meditation Network, and a monthly subscription community called the Online Gatherings, where we come together on a regular basis and basically are trying to figure this out, everything that we've been talking about. How do we live this practice fully in our lives? So the website is really the main way. And as I said, there's a lot there to just pick and choose from.
Okay, so great. I will put all the links in the description, and I'm really would like the audience go to the website and try one of the free meditations and join perhaps the community if you want to go on a regular basis and get more insights about that. So,
excellent.
Yeah, last but not least, do you have anything else to say that I didn't ask you?
I think let's come back to, how do we bring meditation into our lives? And I'd just offer these very quick comments. Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it regular, keep it engaged with your everyday life. Try not to create this sense of separation between the two. And finally, be kind to yourself. We're all under a lot of pressure. We've all got a lot going on. So try not to judge how the meditation practice goes for you. Just try to come back every once in a while, and we'll go from there.
So thank you so much being my guest today on this show. It was really a pleasure for me listening to you and understanding more about the meditation. And yeah, hope to see you soon again.
Thanks very much, Swanette. It's been a delight.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.